This might appear to be a normal game of Victoria 3, but I can assure you it is far from it. Because as of when you're watching this video, the Anbennar mod for Victoria 3 has just released. Now, an explanation is due for those who are unfamiliar with Anbennar because, of course, it is an existing mod and one of my favorite ones at that, but for Europa Universalis 4. So for those who are new to this, first of all, hi, my name is Corbett, I'm a VTuber who plays grand strategy games, and this is the Total Fantasy Conversion mod, Anbennar, a D&D inspired fantasy world that has some of the most impressive world building I have seen in any project. As we play the mod for Victoria 3, we continue on a canon timeline from the mod for EU4. And as much as we could spend the next 3 hours discussing all of the things that have happened over the course of the 400 years between the start of the EU4 mod and where we start in Victoria 3, I think it would be better to simply show you one area at a time. So today, we're going to start in Kanor, the Europe equivalent in this mod, and the home to the namesake of the mod, Black Powder Anbennar. First, let's start with a short version of the lore of Anbennar. So to start with, we have the humans that kind of live in this general area. They live in a lot of places, but also here. You had this empire here, it's called Castanor. It was kind of like the Rome of Anbennar. Eventually, a republic split off from them. They formed like the Anbennarian Republic, centered around the Dame's Head. So, you know, Anbennarian, Dame's Head, that's cool. There are also like super advanced elves over here. Unfortunately, they kind of broke their entire empire, causing a suspiciously circle-shaped hole in here. Some of the elves leave for 1,000 years, they arrive over here, and they find themselves at an opportune time, where a tyrannical Lich King is currently controlling Castanor and fighting a war of the Lich King. So the elves come, they help out, and now the elves are cool. So the elves, humans, gnomes, which are kind of from here, see, gnomish hierarchy, halflings from an area kind of known as the Small Country, and dwarves, which are there like a few of right here. They form this thing called the Empire of Anbennar. It's kind of like the Holy Roman Empire stand-in, but for Anbennar. A couple hundred years pass, a country in this area unifies the whole region. At the time called Nurcester, they invade to establish themselves as the Emperor of Anbennar, and they're also a super majorcratic country. That's why this is called the Majorcratic Domain. But remember, the Lich King was kind of not cool. The Anbennarians remember the whole Lich King thing, and so they're not really vibing with that. Fortunately, they have this cool new invention. It's called Black Damesteer. It's a really cool rock that negates magic. So what are you gonna do with that? You're gonna make bullets, of course. Now, all of a sudden, the mages are not actually that strong, because it turns out you can just shoot them. So as the mage aristocracy attempts to centralize their control over Anbennar, the Anbennarians are really not vibing with that, and of course, decide to shoot the mages. And after shooting many mages, they establish a republic over here. Now, of course, after establishing a republic, the guys over here who were kind of, linked up with Anbennar decide that's kind of cringe. We're gonna split into several pieces now. And that's how we got to where we are today. Black Powder Anbennar stands as a revolutionary republic, one which rejects the magical elite. We're also not very industrialized at the start of the game. We're still reeling from the revolution, and to make matters worse, all that fighting has been very profitable for the Northern League. They are the #1 great power, and also the most industrialized country at the start of the game. Now, besides the lore, we also have a ton of new mechanics in the game. You can see, obviously, we have a new spells tab here. They work very similarly to institutions. You can invest in them, change what kind of spells you're using. We're going to leave that as it is for now. Of course, we also have new laws, for example, for Artificery versus magic. Of course, the tech trees have been changed dramatically to reflect the, I would call it like hyper-industrialization of Anbennar, using not only the stuff we're familiar with, like coal for steam power, but also Artificery, harnessing magic for the purposes of industrialization. Oh yeah, the economy is also a lot more complicated because we have a lot more buildings and a ton of production methods. Like, what if you have no iron? That's not a problem. You can go to the construction sector and just fabricate iron. You can just summon it with magic. Now, of course, we're going to want to start by building a bunch of construction because it appears we have a relatively strong investment pool we want to take advantage of. Now, I think our goals are, first, we're going to want to take our rightful territories from Laurent. Exwes, Pearl's Edge, and Carnatur rightfully belonged to the Empire of Anbennar before we proclaimed the Republic, and so we do need to take these back. It would be well within our interests to ally, or at least sign a defensive pact with the gnomes, as they are quite strong. And then hopefully one day see if we can bring them into the war against Laurent. Secondly, we do have a power block, the Black Powder Front. Ideally, we want to try and liberate the countries of the world from magicratic oppression. Now, it is a little bit against the spirit of the country, but having low magical expertise is not very good. So we are going to get some magical bureaucrats just to increase our magical expertise. That way we won't be losing a whole bunch of innovation. It's very difficult to find any war at all where Laurent wouldn't try to contest me just for the hell of it. So any war at the start of the game seems like a bad idea. Past protectionism, because I think it's actually bad to have free trade at the moment. We still need to industrialize, so we want to promote certain goods by setting export tariffs on raw materials and import tariffs on manufactured goods. We should be able to encourage investment into manufacturing industries. Now, the small country, that of the halflings over here, is once again at the crossroads of empires. Subjugated for hundreds of years, the small country surely is not a fan of this state of affairs. But this time it seems the war to control the small country will be fought using politics. We start off by improving our relations with the small country by 100. Okay, so we're allowed to build in the small country. It does make me wonder how else we're supposed to interact with that. Of course, since the mod is just barely out, it's not going to be like fully complete, so I don't actually know how much of the small country content there is for us. Here we have some more lore surrounding Daemstir in particular. The magical substance, which is used in Artificery and for mages to power up. Most of it comes from space, mostly comets, and in particular this one major one, Oracle's Eye, which has supposedly been destroyed. I don't know what implications that's going to have. Our Daemstir mines seem functional for the time being. Ooh, didn't expect this one. Since the Grand Summit of Arenthil, Anbennarian stood for the union of many disparate peoples and races, but the gathering storm of nationalism has racked the foundations of that once vaunted dream. Can Anbennar survive? In Ismari, pamphleteer sits at his desk, deep in thought as he recalls the tragedy he had just watched, a play concerning the Grand Duchy of Ismaria's fall. Ismaria is this general area over here. He remembers the final stand of the Grand Duke. The bloody banner of the old duchy hung round his shoulders as he lamented a future of infernal vice and pointless feuding. Fragmentation under the Dove Throne's false unity. He had been a black powder man once, trusted in the idea of a black and white flag ascendant over Canor. What had that gotten Ismaria? Crisis, invasion, upheaval, civil war. The pamphleteer grimaced and put pen to paper. He wrote 6 simple words. For Ismaria to unite, Anbennar must divide. We get the Broken Empire journal entry. Several cultural minority movements are created, and we gain 10% radicalism across, I think that's almost all of our cultures. Without an emperor atop the throne, it makes it hard for any of our different peoples to care about each other. The only thing the Black Powder Rebellion really gave the people of Anbennar was freedom from the tyranny of the magicrats. But now that that's over, why should a vermin care about a Pearl's Edger's plight? What does a Crownsman have in common with a Wexenard, and why can't Ismaria or Demeria choose their own independent path? It is a little bit difficult to understand these here, but we have a few options. I mean, it's either we let 15 years pass since the beginning of the unrest, or... Hi, Editing Corbett here. We basically just have to wait 15 years. The other requirement here is so that if you lose a bunch of states, it just completes the journal entry, because the alternative, where you fail the journal entry, just causes you to fracture into a bunch of pieces anyway. Well, either way, I think it's easier to have the 15 years pass, and the way that this advances is through radicalism, enacting regressive laws, raising law enforcement, and some events. Or we can get it to retreat, which is what we want, through being at war, winning wars, having high law enforcement, and releasing countries from my land. And some events. In hindsight, it's a really good thing that we didn't go to war with Laurent early, because we do need to use this war to deplete the progress of this journal entry. I've also revamped the armies, we've gotten munitions, and we have upgraded all of our infantry. So we do have the strongest army in the game right now, I think, ready to fight and hopefully crush Laurent. The hierarchy wants investment rights in Laurent, that's totally cool. We would like to dismantle Laurent if we can, of course. So we'll liberate Sorncoast. Oh, that's great. Yeah, nationalistic unrest. 8% of the vermin pops become radical. That's cool. Oh yeah, more problems. Anbennarian. That's good. That's always good. Well, admittedly, it has still not been a walk in the park, but an expensive war, actually. I love when the AI does that thing where they just send you a peace deal that you can't outwardly reject. So you have to wait 19 days to actually enforce a peace. Anyway, we're good to have this peace now. I think I'd like to stack up advanced research pretty early into the game. Now, something that's gonna suck is that our ruler gives us minus 25% infamy decay, but also, so does this company. And we can't actually disband the company because it is tied to a country that exists. And we also can't reduce it to a colony until we have a civilizing mission, so we can't actually integrate it. So we're kind of stuck with that for a while. We should also further consolidate the country, so we're going to annex Moonhaven. Well, hopefully we annex Moonhaven. There we go. It seems for these events that the higher our law enforcement, the less radicalism we actually get for each event, which is very nice. Oh, you want me to launch a play against these guys? It actually wouldn't be that bad. Yeah, we probably could do that. We do need to return Vertesk. Ooh, new election. And it looks like the Radical Party actually won that one, but we have no legitimacy under any circumstances. Our infamy has just hit 0, and it looks like the Northern League is about to go to war with Grombar. Actually about to go to war with Grombar and Laurent. So you know what? I'm gonna take the opportunity to take Vertesk. I think I'll also take the Flood Marches, and we'll splinter them into a few pieces to make it easier to invade them. That's one very easy war. Now we've also defanged the Northern League. In fact, I didn't even realize that they annexed their subject, but now all of these provinces have no market access. Man, that is a shame. Ooh. During the Black Powder Rebellion, Anbennarian, that's the capital. Actually, Anbennarian starts off as like a little city. Is it really Anbennarian that unites the empire? That'd be crazy. Now that I think about it, Anbennarian seems very incapable of forming any kind of large country. In EU4, they do start as a city-state. Now, yeah, if we accept it, that creates a new country. That's crazy. We're not gonna do that. Hey, I know it was promised, but not by me. Oh wow, another referendum in Freecester. That's crazy, man. What do you know? I wonder what the outcome was. Another one, huh? In X-West. That's interesting, because like we didn't even own X-West. I don't know how they did that. We literally just reconquered this. Anyway, no. We just have to wait 3 years. It's just 3 years. It can't be that bad. Yep, we are not gonna do that either. I'm a little bit busy cooking up some Artificery doodads. Love that name for these things. I guess we could probably pass free trade again at this point. Oh yes, of course the government is unacceptable. Well, we'll just have to wait. Anyway, we're gonna do a mass education campaign, and we'll deal with that in a second. How is it even possible? Hold on, no. How do you receive 50% of the vote, and yet at most you get 36 legitimacy? What am I missing here? Oh, it's because the trade unions and the industrialists are in the same party. Yeah, no, that makes sense actually. One faction wants laissez-faire, the other one wants cooperative ownership. Yeah, that's gonna cause a few rifts, I think. Ooh, we now have our Insian analytical engine. Now this is interesting, because now we get access to these automata, right? They don't really have this in the EU4 mod yet, but over here in this continent, Insia, which also has not really been filled in here, we have these guys called the mechanim. They are a race of robots, essentially, magical robots. They were made by the really advanced precursor elf empire, you know, before the whole circle. But now we can kind of make these little mechanim, and they create monthly mechanim pop assembly. So they actually produce pops each month, which is kind of wacky. And then once you do make a whole bunch of them, you can also give them rights and stuff. So if you've ever played Stellaris, you're probably familiar with how this goes. Now, these automatories are kind of unique. They produce both pops and the automata goods. They are not linked to each other. So if you shut down all of your automatories, you will lose your automata goods, but you will not lose the mechanim pops. We do also have some laws around these guys. So down here, we have mechanim creation and rights. We can make it illegal to build more of these buildings. We also have several different laws here. We can either keep them as property. We can give them cognitive licenses, which I think allows them to do different things. Yeah, we get a new level here, which is, I think, actually an improved amount of assembly. Then we can grant them mechanim freedom as well. I think each of these levels just allows you to produce more and more mechanim. And then, of course, we have some journal entries associated with them. And if we want to, we can actually just get rid of all of them. Now, these buildings are pretty unique because they can build pretty much either a good or a pop. Automata are basically just robots. They don't have sentience, they don't have self-awareness. They literally just do work for you. But if we eventually decide to grant rights to the mechanim, then we can fully awaken them, at which point they will stop producing automata goods and instead just produce actual mechanim pops. And as far as my Vic 3 meta knowledge goes, I think it's probably ideal for you to actually just produce the pops. Because once they're pops, they can, of course, also purchase things. Here we go, 15 years have now passed. Anbennar has withstood many tumults and trials before. The wars of rule, the Imperial Crisis, the Lilac Wars, the Coronite Wars, but each time the Dove overcomes it all. So too has Anbennar overcome this challenge. Anbennar means unity once more, and for the first time in a long time, the peoples of the Dame's Head agree. The drunken Vernman slams his cup against the table, rises to his feet, and proclaims boldly, "So long as the glory of my homeland lives in my heart, and the freedom of the wing thrives in my mustachio, the dream of a free Vern will never die." The Menibor pub quiets as everyone looks to the cause of the sudden interruption. The Vernman's drinking partners are mortified. As the mustachioed man looks around the room, he realizes that perhaps his heart and his mustachio isn't enough anymore. The Vernman sighs, deflates a little bit, and holds up his hands. Sorry everyone. A bit too much to drink, eh? The new dream dies, and the old endures. 20% of our pops lose radicalism, and 10% gain loyalty, and we lose 25 liberty desire in our 3 remaining subjects. Now that is a beautiful graph. Instead of building skyscrapers, it looks like we have airship tower sites. Also a lot cheaper to survey that. Now we can throw down that airship tower. I guess we only get to have one kind of like a skyscraper. And that's going to give us 1,000 convoys, 25% trade capacity. Wait, total 25% trade capacity? That's crazy. And 25% trade advantage. Infamy is pretty low, so we're going to go after the Vivian Empire this time. After all, many of these territories did belong to the Empire of Anbennar. Well, the war is growing a little bit beyond the initial scope here, but I don't think that's going to cause too much of an issue. Now, we are winning the war, but we're having a little bit of a situation here. It may or may not be because I'm trying to pass laissez-faire. It definitely is. Could also maybe have something to do with the combination acts. Maybe. That could do it. Okay, it really isn't that bad. That is another empire sliced in half, leaving us with really very little resistance here. Good news with the passing of laissez-faire. We actually pay approximately 0 in interest rate now, so that's pretty cool. And that's only really possible because, of course, we are using transmuted gold reserves, which gives us minus 20% loan interest rate. Now that we have civilizing mission, we can actually go and remove the company we have, since of course we have turned the trading company into a colony. Because frankly, I don't like that minus 25% infamy decay. I'm sure it only really exists to slow you down at the start of the game. Pretty genius method of doing that, by the way. But anyway, even though it is actually a very rich company, we are going to remove it. In fact, I would much prefer, actually, setting up this company, because it does have a prestige good variant and increases infamy decay as well as legitimacy. That's pretty useful. Now, I assume this decision is for a canal somewhere, and if I had to guess, probably the one that you build as the lizard folk in EU4 down here. We might as well check it out. So who are we asking here? I think it is these guys, actually. I could either take it or ask for it. We'll make a suitable offer at least. Here we go. We'll go with regulatory bodies. That's fine. Looks like there's no option to make an offer to these guys. Maybe I actually do just have to take it. Okay, we'll get around to that at some point. We can build a skyscraper. That's cool. I don't actually remember what gives you this event. Hey, considering we are the #1 GDP in the world by far, I'm going to assume we probably export the most. Surprisingly, we don't actually export the most. We are a net importer. Oh, now that actually makes a lot of sense. Our population is much larger than the hierarchies, so we have a larger domestic market to consume our products. And we do import a lot of raw materials. Judging by our rising GDP, I think we definitely want to export more. We do have a pretty solid trade surplus for our exports. Let's improve that trade advantage. Ooh, hey now, you know, if Laurent is having a liberal revolt, a revolt that wants to overthrow the autocratic monarchy and establish a universal suffrage parliamentary republic, I think that's kind of our business, wouldn't you say? Now, they're not going to give me anything because they don't like me, but it's fine if they don't like me. We still have time to fix that. I don't know why I'm allowed to enact state atheism, but sure, why not? It would be funny. Okay, we have a new Laurent, one which is still antagonistic, but at least they're a republic. That's nice. You know, we did our job spreading the revolution even if they don't appreciate it. Now, we do need to annex some of our subjects. If we try passing censorship, it might make people upset enough to give me a good success chance at something I actually want to pass. It might be difficult to annex all of our subjects, because some of you have a lot of population. That's actually not even that much population. I assume a lot of that infamy is because your liberty desire is still pretty high. Anyway, we're gonna annex you, I guess. Ooh, I actually didn't want to pass censorship. Oops, wasn't supposed to do that. Okay, well, we do have just barely enough to try and pass Council Republic. The radical movement's not gonna be a big fan of that. Yeah, this is, maybe this is not a good idea. Maybe we can do something a little bit easier. Now, I am trying to annex my subject, but somebody likes to butt in. I think Bucelar's been annoying enough. I'm probably just gonna take their stuff. Now, with this war being done, we've pretty much dismantled like every single great power. Or at least the ones in the general vicinity. And even great power might be a bit of a stretch. It is funny that Ibavar is an oligarchic monarchy, but we can invite them to the power block. We have just unlocked mechs, so I think I'm going to expand the military a little bit, just to enable us to have more of these mechs. Normally I don't get a whole bunch of cavalry, but these, they seem pretty good. Cavalry in regular Victoria is nowhere near this good, so I think it's worth investing a little bit more. Also, not sure how I feel about these airship bombardiers. They basically just transfer the defense into offense and have a lower kill rate while giving you a little bit more battle occupation. Not to mention, I feel like they're more expensive since they require engines and doodads. I think I'll probably wait until military skyships. Now, I unbanned the trade unions, and so subsequently they have won this election. Now with them in charge, there is a pretty decent chance actually we could swap to a council republic, which I think would be funny. It would kind of cause a few problems though. How about we get rid of child labor first? Oh, what do you know, Laurent actually is willing to be friendly with me. Can't invite them to the faction, but they are kinda chill like that at least. I'd say I've done my job. We can go ahead and do some mutual investing. We don't necessarily have to keep on expanding in Kanor either. In fact, it would be far cheaper for us to take stuff in Sarhal. And we do need more rubber, so we'll go after the Kaino Federation. Despite our best efforts, Council Republic is probably not going to pass. Although we might be able to get protected speech. Now that we have protected speech, I think we're also going to go for probably proportional taxation, just because we do have a petition for that. Ooh, okay, I was actually looking into this. The Eberthili Proletarian Revolt is offering to become my protectorate if I help them against Eberthil, and I am more than willing to accept. We've also completed the positivist stage. Gives us more technology research speed, but I think we're kind of good on that, to be honest. Now, we were able to add in Noorcester to the power block. That gives us a few more members, which we can use to add our fourth principle. I do like the company's one, so we'll go with that. I think it would be cool to pick up one of the new ones, especially since magical reagents are used pretty much everywhere. It would be nice to get the throughput bonus on that. I don't think I've ever reduced law enactment time this much. Very nice to be able to speedrun through this. We can also pick up another company, our second last company. We will go with this one. I believe I have absolutely destroyed the law system because it only takes a day between enactment time. We are never passing this law. Yep, there it goes. But we have something better because we got really, really lucky. Our trade union guy died, and look who we have, a humanitarian. So we should be able to enact multiculturalism. The Social Democratic Party has won this election with, what was that, 57% of the vote? So they've been granted the mandate of heaven to pass multiculturalism. And there we have it. Now for us to become the new Colossus, we also need to enact no migration controls. Alright, we just had everybody inexplicably leave the power block. That's kinda cool. But even cooler than that, we have the awakening of the Automata. All across Halan, the once steady drone of seemingly thoughtless automata has become erratic. Once obedient units have ceased to follow their protocols and instead question who they are and why they are here. Who knows what consequences this will have. There's been another awakening, this time within a local automatory. They've begun to walk out, claiming they are not property to be sold. The automatory's owners are demanding action. Oh, do we have a whole thing for this? Yes, we do, the mechanim awakening. Okay, since we've researched mechanim rights, we are gaining support for their sentience. For the time being, we are not going to support their sentience. Now, funny enough, for us to have the new Colossus, we actually need to swap off of state atheism. It's actually not very easy to do, but we'll give it a shot. We're getting an absolutely absurd number of mass migrations. Now that's a beautiful map. I think we're having about 230,000 people move here every single week. Since we're so powerful and we're kind of late into the game, I think we can afford to be a little bit mean. Especially since we have a larger GDP than the next 9 countries combined. So we're gonna take all of this. That's looking pretty alright. And now, with total separation, there we go. We'll get some more migration attraction. We're going to continue being a little bit mean because frankly, I don't think anybody can stop me. And there we have it. Weirdly enough, these guys actually just want to enforce investment rights. And it's actually totally fine if they do that, so sure. Alrighty. We're actually just gonna do the same thing over here to Laurent. Alrighty. I took control of most of their colonies. And of course we did take the capital, which now that I think about it makes it look really ugly. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Anyway, let's see if we can annex the small country. Again, these guys want random investment rights. Totally cool with me. But now we have small country as a protectorate after taking most of their land. But at this point, the game is starting to lag quite a bit. We are rather uncontested at the moment with a GDP of 1.4 billion, a population of around 300 million, double that of the second place, and we're still less than 70 years into the game, so we have a lot of technology still to research, although really not too much because of course we are getting a ridiculous amount of innovation and technology spread. That is what we're going to call it for today. I believe we have reconquered the former borders of the Empire of Anbennar, at least how it is at the start of EU4. But thank you very much for watching. If you want to check out the Anbennar mod for Victoria 3 yourself, there will be a link to it in the description. Keep in mind it still has limited content for now as it is brand new. And if you're looking for what country to play next, you can look at any of these countries here that have national journal entries. There are also a few with regional ones, like over here. But for now, thank you very much for watching. If you want to go ahead and leave a like on this video, that would be super appreciated as it helps the algorithm know that you liked it and pushes it to more people. Apparently there's a new thing on YouTube also called hype points. Apparently you can give them to a video and that also helps to push it. Not entirely sure how that works, but worth checking out. And of course, if you don't want to miss the next video, subscribing and turning on notifications would be a good idea. But for now, this is Corbett signing off, and as always, have a fantastic day. A special thank you to the patrons this month. In particular, thank you very much to Erica, Born to Dog, Gallo4, Gorka Maistegi, The Quebecer, Mikhail Sample, Nick Schneffel, Princess Rhea, Qbrute, Spiro, Tillman Augustin, AG Forero, Ben Mottram, Quiet Guy, Rosset, Torvald, Ambient Cyan, Elysia Tatze, James Levy, Luke78776, and Robert.